we didn't get on very well with Red and Smith Morris. Jerry and I decided we'd go and make the series on our own.
The name of the company was AP Films, and Arthur smilingly used to say, well, AP, Arthur Provost Films. And I would say, no, it's Anderson Productions.
We were looking for somewhere to make Twizzle, and we looked at church halls, various things. There were a lot of snags, partly because in those days we needed quite a lot of light and the electricity was quite difficult to find enough power. And we went to Islet Park, and it's a beautiful place. And we thought, well, they'll never let us use this. And the lady that owned it said, yes, you can have the ballroom.
Wow, this brings back memories.
Yes. Now you know what it was like after coming home from seeing Psycho on your own with no lights. All on my own.
Taunty, the battery boy, I'm a walkie-talkie toy.
What was extraordinary looking back was how primitive the setup was.
We had friends in Birmingham who had a sound studio, and they used to bring their gear down to Maidenhead.
They had found a small, really small room on the ground floor of this house, and it was actually draped with sheets.
We pinned blankets to the walls to make it more suitable for recording. And of course, we had to avoid the noise of the tape recorder that was recording the sound. And so we actually used to lock the artists in a cupboard. I thought he would be the last person in the world to play an American part. But in fact, he did it very, very well.
Can you still do
Oh, I think I can still do Tex Tucker.
Only one hombre around these parts smokes cigars, and that's Fernando.
They wouldn't be aiming to blow up the town, would they?
Not if I can help it.
And I can hardly get a word in edgeways once you get going, Ma.
Well, I like that. I'm not going to give you any coffee now. You can just get off out of here and take your horse with you.
The first series I did for Jerry was Four Feather Falls, and I thought it was very, very charming. It was just a quarter of an hour. And I played an old guy called Gramps, which I based on a Hollywood actor called Walter Brennan, who was in every Western in the 30s and 40s. And, he talked like that,
Pedro's robbed Ma Jones's store, and there's been a heap of shooting.
Is she hurt, Twink?
No, she ain't hurt, but she's sure scared.
And we actually had the puppet of Tex Tucker riding a puppet horse, which was quite an achievement at the time. I dread to look back and have a look now. I'm sure it was terrible. The early puppets couldn't open their mouths. We moved on to mouths that could open. And in order to make them open, we pulled a particular control wire, and the mouth opens. But now the mouth would stay open. So we fitted a return spring so that as they released the pressure on the control wire, the mouth was shut. The problem was that in order to open and shut the mouth, that string or control wire had to be tugged like this, and consequently the puppet's head was talking like this the whole time.
Supercar! Supercar!
We knew we were going to be called upon to do 26 stories.
There was no time for him and his team to do anything other than to shoot our shooting scripts.
I've got to say, this was an enormous pace to write adventure scripts at, even if they were only half-hour scripts. I mean, one a week, complete shooting script, complete with all the, angles and everything like that. One shooting script every week, wow.
I know one particular time I just said to Jerry, I've just got to take a break. I can't, because I was shooting constantly for like 6 weeks. And he and Sylvia were very kind. They just said to me, well, take holiday and you go where you want to, and we'll pay for it. And they did. You had done your shift, and they made sure that you were recognised for doing that shift.
I remember Jerry doing Robert the Robot, and I think he was quite excited about that because he didn't do any of the other voices, and I think my mother had sort of, by that time, had sort of commandeered the whole voiceover thing.
Then it was very, very difficult, if not impossible, to produce a sort of robot voice which would have to be a monotone. So we found out that in Edinburgh University they were creating the human voice artificially. They gave us a vibrator, which of course caused everybody to smile, but not that kind of vibrator. And it was a vibrator that people who had their larynx removed through cancer would be able to put the vibrator under their chin, and it made a constant buzz. And then, of course, that sound was transmitted to the air inside the mouth, and I was then able to modulate that by mouthing the words. So let's get this straight, fellas. It was not my voice. It was the sound of the vibrator which I modulated. And that is why Robert always used to say, "On our way home."
Cloud base. There has been an explosion in Spectrum Maximum Security Building. Report. Total destruction.
Did you ever go on these lovely cult television weekend things? Great fun, treated very well for 2 days, of your life, and it's wonderful. But some of them are not really clued up that maybe you're not the puppet. No, I tell you, this is serious. A bloke came up one. You changed a bit since Destiny Angel, Liz. Yes.
Some of the special effects things we tried were very hit and miss.
We're all set up, Steve's motorbike, and he's going to rear up and fire. So, all right, lads, here we go. Turn over, and there's Derek there waiting with his batteries. And it was the most almighty bang you've ever heard in your life, and smoke went everywhere. And everyone jumped up. There was Steve Zodiac with a pair of handlebars. That's all that was left of the model.
I remember that I phoned Lou and I said, we really need to buy 5 Mitchell cameras. And in those days, the Mitchell cameras was about £20,000. He said, well, why are you calling me? So I said, well, they're going to cost £20,000 each. And he said, so? Well, I want your permission. Cherry, you don't have to ask my permission. Just buy them and get on with it.
In 1961, I had done, which I think was about my 35th film, a film called Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea with the wonderful Peter Lorre. And I was fascinated with voices. I was listening to them all the time. And one time they went to roll a take, and Peter Lorre had gone to the men's room, and the AD didn't notice. So we were doing the take without him. Walter Pidgeon did his line, and everybody, did their line. And came time for his line, he wasn't there. So I flipped it in. See, the Van Allen belt that hangs up there in the troposphere at that altitude. And so Peter Lorre came back, and I said, okay, Mr. Lorre, we won't need you for the rest of the day. He said, no, I have a whole lot of important scenes to do today, a lot of big scenes. They said, no, Mr. Easton will do your voice. He said, you do my voice? And I was kind of embarrassed. He said, do that for me. So I did it, and he said, that's very good. He said, a lot of people, when they go to do my voice, they put the finger on their nose. So I don't walk around with my finger on my nose. So when I met the Andersons and talked to them about Stingray, we discussed the voice for X20, and I did the Peter Lorre voice for them. They said, oh, that's it. I said, okay, that's good, yeah, I'll do it like that. And then for the other character, Phones, I used the voice that I had used in that same film. I had been the radio operator from the South called Sparks. So I just did the similar voice when I did Phones, and I would do, "All right, Troy, approaching target, 500 yards, 400 yards, 300 yards, 5 torpedoes." And so it was interesting that both of those characters were derivative from my work on that particular film.
Since we were making science fiction films about submarines that could go down to enormous depths, rockets that would be fired into space, can you imagine a broadcaster saying, "There's great excitement in this country at the moment because the first rocket going to the moon is being launched in Scunthorpe tonight"?
We used a chemical called titanic chloride to make smoke effects. So when the buildings collapse, you splatter titanic chloride liberally and you get all this lovely smoke effect. If you use smoke cartridges, which we did, and the chloride, it manufactured phosgene, which was a First World War poison gas, which we were making on set and breathing. Stanley Kubrick, he was doing 2001, and he wanted us to shoot the special effects because we could do, on a good day, 5 shots a day. And he couldn't get this because it was taking 3 months to get 5 shots at Shepperton. I believe the Andersons turned it down because of their commitments with the puppet films.
Jerry had this meeting and said that Lou Grace decided he wants it to be an hour. So go on to making our pictures and we'll rewrite the scripts for the half-hour ones.
But you were shooting and prepping a new hour show while you were trying to shoot and pick up on half-hour shows. Nobody ever really noticed, I don't think, that they weren't an hour show in the first place.
Didn't Jerry give you a feeling that you could do anything? He was so gentle and quiet. You just relaxed with him.
He was lovely. I remember going to his house in Gerrard's Cross. My agent took me there. And the first thing that struck me was this wonderful coral-coloured carpet. And they had toddlers, or there was a toddler around at the time. And I thought, I've got toddlers, how do they keep it clean? It was so magnificent. It was a lovely house with a studio. Yeah. And he was so sweet. He was terribly kind. And of course, when we were going into Scarlet, we had a special day when we could invite our children.
Oh,
did you
really?
take your children?
I don't think I had children when I was working. Yes, I did, yes. But I never did, no. No, I didn't. Oh,
it was it was a bonanza day, and we took the kids there. And I never forget that my two, well, they were little, the girls, you know, about 4 and about 7. And they were more interested in the wardrobes, of course, of the angels.
Oh, yes.
And of course, Penelope's wardrobe was the thing as well. It was fantastic. You know.
Lady Penelope?
Yes.
You didn't play Lady Penelope?
No, but they liked her wardrobe. They were more interested in that than my uniforms. You know? It was terribly funny, but they did all the explosions for us. I mean, he set it all up, and he was like a sort of Santa Claus, really, you know, a father figure, Santa Claus, getting all these kids in, all saying hello, shaking hands with him, and then they saw the explosions, and they were gobsmacked.
I'm very delighted to have the opportunity to introduce the next film, Thunderbird 6.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now, International Rescue's latest top secret, Thunderbird 6.
Thunderbirds I Go was very serious, because Thunderbird 6 had much lighter moments in it. We'd had the experience of doing one, so it wasn't necessarily easier, but I thought the script was much lighter. What we tried to do is to give it more action and more fun. The tiger moth particularly was great fun to do. Jerry got this bright idea of saying, why don't we fly it under a motorway bridge?
And it had to go at great speed under the bridge and out again. And Joan Hughes was this very, very wonderful woman pilot.
The M40 at that time was being built, and one section was finished, and it was due to open in about 3 weeks.
We had to get permission to do this because, you know, they considered it was dangerous and all the rest of it. So the day of the shooting of this, we had all the officials down there.
They said, you can't fly the plane under the bridge to Joan, but you can land and taxi under the bridge and then take off again. I said to Joan, all right, well, if we must, we must. And she said, well, if we must, we must. I said, well, anyway, Joan, whatever you do, I'll get it. I've got 3 cameras on it. And then she comes down, she goes lower and lower.
She shot underneath there.
They took us to court.
Joan's defence was, and it was perfectly right, perfectly true, but they wouldn't take it just as her word, that it was more dangerous to do it the way they wanted, with sort of taxiing underneath the motorway bridge, rather than if she got the speed up to get under the bridge.
She couldn't land. The wind would have pushed her, you know, the wrong way, and that was what she was standing by.
So they accepted that because she had, I mean, she'd been a fantastic pilot for years and years.
I thoroughly enjoyed working on the film, and I hope you'll enjoy it as much as I did.
Oh, well, it was a nice legacy.
It was a wonderful legacy, and I personally, like you, I owe him huge amounts.
Yeah, we do. We
huge
do.
amounts.
We do.
We really
Well,
do. Thank you, thank you,
Thank you, darling.
Jerry.
Thank you, Jerry.
We do. We owe him a great deal because, you know, isn't it funny? You mentioned something that Jerry's done, and immediately people recognise it. I mean, you know, I could be Miss Havisham, but if I've done Captain Scarlet, they know me.
Exactly.
You know?
Yes, exactly.
That's it.
Yes,
They
the man
said-
in the taxi today, he said, what are you doing? And I said, well, I'm going to do... And he said, Jerry Ann. I said, oh. And he said, what were you? And I said, Terrorhawks. He nearly stopped the cab. He knew Zelda. I had to do Zelda in the back of the cab.
Oh, no.
I had to do my... in the back of the cab. It was great fun. He said, don't bother with a tip.